This was a nothing burger for Trump. The Chinese set expectations very low, and they were not disappointed. The day before Trump arrived, the front page of the China Daily talked about the meeting between Xi and Tajikistan's president. The only mention of the upcoming meeting with Trump, which was to take place in less than 14 hours from that when that headline appeared, was a little sidebar that was talking more about Xi than just mentioned Trump in passing. None of the major websites the day before had any mention whatsoever that Trump was coming to town. Then the flags that were on the route from the airport into Beijing, they still had the Tajik flag up. Last I saw. Whereas if they were really preparing for a major visit, they would have put the U.S. flag up next to the Chinese flag. And most importantly was at the greeting at the airport. The vice premier, basically the number 2 guy, number 3 guy in the Chinese government, was there to greet Trump. Now that's sort of, let's call it, that's normal protocol for your run-of-the-mill statesman. But when Vladimir Putin shows up, Xi is there at the airport. When Kim Jong-un visited China, Xi was there at the airport. Here comes Trump, no Xi. So the Chinese were sending, they have a great way of sending subtle messages, symbolic messages. This is to Trump, you're not that important. And then the fact that this was not handled like what I'd call a regular diplomatic session, because normally a regular diplomatic session has the meeting of the Sherpas. A Sherpa is, it's a term associated with mountaineering. The poor Nepalese that have to carry all the crap for all the rich Westerners up Mount Everest. They're the ones that do the actual work. But then it's the great white folk from the West that come in and get to celebrate. Oh, I summited Everest. I climbed it all on my own with the help of all of my little brown buddies carrying my luggage for me. Well, the Sherpas in diplomatic talk are the ones who actually work out the agreements, they work out the language, they agree on what's going to be done. They didn't have any of that. So this is like show up and say, hey, what's up? And that's why, to my knowledge, there was not a joint statement released at the end in which they pledged and said, here's what we agreed on. Here's what we agreed to do. And instead it was Trump saying, oh, yeah, I got him. Well, I had him right where I wanted him. It is the tendency of Trump to exaggerate. I did hear from a source inside the White House that was familiar with what had transpired. And basically they said Xi Jinping on the issue of Iran told Trump to go pound sand, that China is not going to lift a finger, that the United States created this problem, and from China's perspective, the United States needs to get out and withdraw. So, Trump can put as much lipstick as he wants on this pig, it's still a pig.
And so, okay, and we saw that, right? With the 2 statements that came out, they were diametrically different. The Chinese statement didn't really mention Iran at all, other than saying that they have the sovereign right they respect Iran's sovereign rights. Right. Trump made the claim that China had agreed that basically Iran can't militarize the Strait of Hormuz. They can't charge a toll, that the strait needs to open, and that China was going to buy oil from the United States of America. What's your thoughts on those elements?
No to all of the above. I mean, it's again, Trump lying is about the best way to put it. China doesn't need to buy oil from the United States. China's got plenty of oil that it's buying from Brazil, from Russia, from Nigeria, from other countries around the world. He may have said that to placate. Oh yeah, it's like if you've gone out on a date, with whether if you're dating a girl or a guy, and at the end of the day say, hey, look, this is great, we'll be calling you, and you don't call. It wasn't that special. That's what went on here. The Chinese aren't going to be calling up the United States and saying, oh yeah, we need to buy your oil. No, they don't. we want to buy some more soybeans. That's not likely to happen, but it is. China did gestures. They were not insulting Trump, but at the same time, they were not embracing Trump's agenda at all. And again, in the private talks where Trump tried to get them on board to put pressure on Iran, China said no, because the reality is China and Russia are working together behind the scenes to create a new security architecture in the Persian Gulf that is going to force the United States out militarily. That's what they're working on, and they're doing it through Pakistan. I've got that 100% confirmed.
And when you look at G and the way he's basically dealt with Trump, he obviously did not agree to his overtures. But what was Trump's psychology for this meeting? And what I mean by that is he took all of the corporations, he took all of the oligarchs, and all the names were there, whether it's the head of NVIDIA, whether it was Elon Musk, whether it's the head of Visa or MasterCard, whomever it is, they were all there. What's the reason for taking the entire oligarch and corporations to China?
Well, I guess his hope was to persuade the Chinese that we've got the full backing of all these major tech firms who, candidly, what they want to get business in China. They're not looking for the Chinese to do business with them per se. These companies need the Chinese market, and so she could entertain them and talk to them, but like the reality is with take the electric vehicle market, Tesla was somewhat the pioneer on that, but now China is surpassing them. They may have Trump's goal may have been to try to get the Chinese to agree to allow more Teslas to be sold in China, but my understanding is the Chinese electric vehicles actually now surpass Tesla in quality, and they certainly are less expensive.
Oh, no doubt, no doubt. When you look at the advancements of Chinese electric vehicles, they far surpass Tesla. This is why the United States of America and Canada don't allow Chinese electric vehicles to operate. I thought we have a free market. I thought it's non-monopolization. I thought we live in capitalism, but they don't allow them to operate because they know as soon as they allow a competitor to operate in Northern America, no one's going to buy Teslas and everyone's going to buy the BYUs or various others. And this is why with the Canadians, I believe the Canadians are planning to allow the Chinese market in. It's going to be the complete decimation of Tesla, right?
Yeah. Or Tesla's going to have to compete. Tesla's going to have to find out how to cut expenses and still maintain quality. They said that is capitalism. What we've had up to here is sort of state-run monopoly. And so it is. I honestly don't know what Trump. I don't know if he hoped it would intimidate Xi, if it would be intimidate the Chinese, but they weren't intimidated at all, and it did not lead to any significant breakthroughs. China warned the United States, keep your damn hands off of Taiwan. If you meddle in Taiwan, it could lead to war between us. I wish I was there when Xi first broke out the Thucydides trap. When he mentioned that, I bet you everyone on Trump's delegation were Googling as quickly as possible Thucydides. How do you spell Thucydides? And they wanted to see what's he talking about. I'd be surprised if there was even one person on his delegation who knew what he was talking about. But the fact that Xi used a sophisticated historical term, showed you what he had in mind. Because the reality is, the United States was the world leader in technology. Could be considered the world leader in industry at one point. But that's no longer the case. So right now, the entire fate of the United States to retain its status as the global hegemon resides on two things. The petrodollar, ensure that everybody who's buying oil is buying it with dollars, not yuan, not some other currency. And number two, that the rest of the world is buying our treasury bills so that we can continue to finance our enormous deficits. And what's happening on those two issues? The dollar is falling. It's no longer the currency. It's no longer the dominant currency for purchasing oil, as an example. So Iran's purchasing oil with yuan, or the Chinese are using yuan in the Iranian currency. The same for Russia, Brazil. So the demand for U.S. dollars is plummeting, and as it plummets, that means the price of the dollar falls as well. Then you've got the issue of debt. And instead of these countries loading up on U.S. debt, the interest rates are now up for, I see the 30-year was like 5%, which is extraordinarily high. Nobody's buying. So they keep having to raise the rates in order to try to attract buyers. Meanwhile, countries, China, Japan, Saudi Arabia, they are offloading dollars. They're offloading their treasury bills, and they're buying gold and silver. So the two things that the United States has as its pillars to maintain its hegemonic status, they're falling apart.
Yeah. Now, in terms of China, I still think that they don't want to go down that road, obviously. One of the things, though, is, and I didn't fully understand, maybe you've got some information on this. Trump came out afterwards and said, when Xi said that America is a falling power, he didn't mean me, he meant Biden. Yeah. He wasn't talking about the current government, he was talking about the Biden government. And in reality, I agree with him. Now, what was he referring to when he was talking about that?
What was she referring to?
Trump. So
Trump is just in denial. He's trying to pretend that he wasn't talking about me. He absolutely was talking about you, Donald. Show us one area where you're exceeding China. How about industrial output? Yeah, China's got the edge there. How about literacy rates? Boom. China's got the edge there. How about production of hypersonic missiles? Boom. China's got the edge there. How about the number of ships building? Boom. China's got the edge there. I mean, where is the evidence that the U.S. universities, that you got more and more of our people seeking to get into our top universities? That's not happening either. It's starting to shift to China. So, every I defy, come up with an objective measure that you'd use to compare countries. And I'll be willing to bet that 90% of them favor China, which is a sign that's what has changed. All that's changed in 25 years.
I guess
10, how many top 10, how many US banks versus Chinese banks are in the top 10 banks? China's got 4, US has got 2.
I guess what I'm trying to ask is, I think I probably wasn't very clear, that there seems to be a statement made by Xi. I was looking for it, but I couldn't find it. So I don't know if it's public or if you know about this, but it seems like what Xi said was America is a declining power. And then obviously Trump tried to play politics and say, oh, look, he's not talking about me, he's talking about Biden, which shows his weakness. But did Xi say that, or is this just him?
Yeah, no, I read that as well. I can't put my fingers on it right away. Let me see here. I thought I could have, when did she refer to the U.S. as a declining power? We'll find out here. I gotta stand by here. Let's see what the answer is. I can give it to you here in a second. Yeah. But yeah, he's it says she has not frequently used the exact phrase declining power or declining nation, but he has repeatedly endorsed the broader narrative that the East is rising, the West is declining. So, and they give the I guess the Chinese word for it is Dongshang Shijiang, which implicitly frames the U.S. and West as is in relative decline.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and I guess during the summit, when Xi invoked the Thucydides trap in his opening remarks, he asked whether China and the U.S. could overcome that trap, which the Thucydides trap is about an established hegemon, read U.S., and against a rising power. And that inevitably, or at least Graham Allison claimed it inevitably leads to war. That's not true. But implicit in it was referring to the United States as a declining nation.
Yeah, yeah. And I guess I was just trying to figure out whether he actually said it during the meeting, because I didn't see any reports on it. So I thought there might be some kind of inside information on it. I mean, I saw Trump's statement on it, but I didn't find the actual origin video that he was referring to.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So now coming back to the conversation that we're having, one of the other things he mentioned in the statement, something we talk about quite a bit, is he said, and Iran, and we've also obliterated, something along the lines, I'm paraphrasing now, we've fought Iran, or we've obliterated Iran, and then he wrote, to be continued. So it seems to be suggesting kinetic war. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I think Trump is going to order a renewed attack on Iran. The question remains, will it take place? Because if the Chinese and Russians are successful in proposing to Saudi Arabia and Qatar to basically withdraw from the U.S. security umbrella, which means get the U.S. military bases out of their country and refuse to allow their countries to be used as launching pads for U.S. attacks on Iran. If those two countries come out now and tell U.S. no, then the U.S. is going to be hard pressed to figure out what to do, because I'm sure Kuwait will follow suit, Bahrain will, UAE is a little bit up in the air, but once they see the other four Gulf states go that way, I think they're going to feel compelled to go along with the crowd. So this is, but if Trump gets his way, if those countries cooperate, I think he's going to launch renew attacks on Iran within the next week.
And that's what one other question on this, and then I've got some questions on the UAE. So he was flying back. Obviously, he could be having these discussions on the flight back. So. Right. Is it likely it could be this weekend, or more like, but then next weekend is what, the 250-year anniversary, and doesn't he need to kind of make sure, like, what does that make it less likely or more likely?
Well, the 250th anniversary of what?
It was the 250-year anniversary of it slipped my mind now, but let me check. But it slipped my mind now. But it says it's the 250-year anniversary of, someone in the chat can remind me.
Yeah, I mean July 4th.
That's July 4th, but there's something else that is in next week. I can't remember what it was, but I'll check it. But anyway,
okay.
Do you think it's do you think so? What I guess my main question was: do you think it's going to be this weekend in terms of the attack, or do they need a bit more time to kind of plan, get Trump in the right position or where he needs to be?
They've had it planned out for weeks. I mean, the ceasefire went into effect on April 15, so that's 4 weeks ago, right? 4 or 5 weeks ago now. So they've had more than enough time to plan, and I know that the plans are in place. It's just a matter of Trump ordering it. So assuming they've got the cooperation of the Saudis and Qataris and Kuwaitis, then I anticipate that they could be giving the orders to launch by Monday at the latest. But then a lot depends upon what the subordinate military commanders are coming back and telling both General Kane, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and telling Trump that any further military attacks of that nature are going to significantly drain U.S. inventories of critical weapon systems that we do not have many of. And Trump came back from China without a promise on the rare earths, to make new Tomahawks, to make new JASSMs, to make new Patriot 3, PAC-3 missiles. to make new THAAD interceptors, they need rare earth minerals. To make F-35 radars, they need rare earth minerals. And China's saying no, they're not going to provide that because for the simple reason it's being used to produce weapons that'll be used against China. So that factor, that's another factor that could weigh in that could prevent Trump from launching any attacks.
Okay, we'll see. Now, in terms of the UAE, we had some kind of weird situation occur between the UAE and Israel yesterday. Well, it led up to yesterday, which was there was a report by Israel saying that Netanyahu, including key Israeli personnel, had flown to the UAE during the Iran war. And this included Netanyahu, the head of the IDF, the head of the army, and various other personnel. The UAE came out and denied it. And then what happened was the UAE, they came out and denied it. Then we got OSINT accounts and satellite accounts that demonstrated that there was a flight that went from Israel to the UAE during the war. And then Israel said, not only did all those people go, but the head of the IDF also went. What's going on there? What is the reason for why this was leaked? Why would UAE deny it? Why would there be this kind of divergence in what happened?
Yeah, Israel's trying to sow division among the members of the Persian Gulf, number one, and trying to force UAE's hand. And here's the UAE. In fact, one of the other Emirates, because there are seven, I believe there are seven different tribes really in the United Arab Emirate. One of those tribes came out with the harshest language condemning Israel and not wanting to have anything to do with it. So this is now sparking even greater division within the UAE, not to mention within the Gulf.
That was Sharjah. Sharjah came out and said that they don't agree, but the other six Emirates are in line. I mean, one of the attacks on Iran happened from Ras Al Khaimah. I believe another one happened in Ajman. So I do think the other Emirates are kind of on board. And that's what doesn't make sense to me. I see the UAE has been so on board with Israel in almost everything they did, to the extent where they even carried out attacks on Karg Island. And then we got reports recently that they actually carried out more attacks on Iran. I just can't see a scenario where there would be some kind of disagreement between them. So I can't see the logic behind why this was made public. There's no need to pressure a country that's already in bed with you.
Well, once the word gets out that this new security architecture constructed by Russia and China is going into place, you're going to see a change of heart on the part of the UAE. They'll recognize they bet on the wrong horse. They were betting that the United States and Israel are going to prevail. They're not. And once it becomes clear that they're not, the UAE is going to choose to go with the winner, which will be Russia and China.
Yeah, okay. So you think that they're going to have to flip because of what's happening in terms of...
Self-preservation.
But they already left OPEC. They've already kind of separated themselves from the Gulf states. I don't know. Maybe they're floundering, but just the whole thing doesn't. But we'll have to see.
Yeah, you can always change your mind. They can always turn around and say, "Oops, we're sorry, our bad. We want to come back in." So yeah, the UAE is probably the weakest of the Gulf states. When you go through there are five main commodities that come out of the Gulf: oil, liquid natural gas, urea, sulfur, helium. The main exporter of oil, 36% of the oil coming out of the Gulf comes out of Saudi Arabia. Second is, there's Kuwait, and then the UAE gets in there, but that's about it. But LNG, that's all Qatar. Helium, that's Qatar. And urea, that's Qatar, Saudi, that's spread around the Gulf. And then sulfur, that's primarily Saudi Arabia. So UAE is not a major energy exporter. It gets enough to build all these extravagant public projects. But it really is not in the same league as, say, the Saudis or even the Qataris. So I think as the Chinese-Russian plan progresses, the UAE is going to look around and say, you know what? We need to go with them. They're the winners.
Well, yeah, they kind of built themselves as like separate of the degeneracy they're part of, but they built themselves as like a financial hub. And obviously what's happened with the war is That's caused them a huge amount of problems. They've had to not allow people to take money out of the Emirates. They've had to force people to stay within the Emirates. They've had to ask for a credit line from the United States of America. So the main aspect that their kind of job is, which is they're like a financial hub in the DIFC, which is and even the DIFC, if is like based on British law, they kind of are stuck in that aspect, right?
Correct. So
yeah. So now, you think that there is a highly likely that the war's gonna restart. I spoke to Colonel Wilkinson, and thank you so much for that. He basically said that he believed when you look at the firepower that's around the Gulf, even though from volume it seems more, but from ability in terms of the penetration, it's not as voluminous as it was prior. And he thinks that if they were to start the war, they could only last about 11 days before they basically, their weaponry, the armory, the bombs become critical. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I think he's exactly right. The number one, the Gulf Arabs don't have much military power to project. They're very, very limited. And they're using weapons supplied by the United States that are in short supply. And the United States does not have both the industrial capability and the raw materials needed to produce more of those weapons. So they're caught. And it's one of the things that I think there's hesitancy on the part of the U.S. military to restart the war, simply because they know, within about 2 weeks, they could actually be running out of weapons.
We also had a report a couple of hours before you came on, which said that they're extending the ceasefire in Lebanon by 45 days. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it would be. There's no ceasefire right now. I mean, that's just a paper exercise. It's ostensibly a ceasefire, yet the fighting's going on in the south, and the Israelis continue to bomb Lebanon. So, it's been meaningless.
No, I totally agree with you. It's just a charade. But because in reality, there's never been a day that they've not bombed. And never mind since this war, since 2024, they've bombed almost every single day and killed civilians almost every single day. So I'm in agreement with you. Now, one of the things they mentioned within there was that the Israelis and the Lebanese government were going to work together and get the Lebanese army to possibly disarm Hezbollah. What's your thoughts on that?
Mission impossible. Hezbollah's got far more military strength than the Lebanese military, and they've been, that's been a pipe dream. Let's see, the war started in 1975. So that's been a pipe dream for 51 years. Not going to happen.
No doubt it's not going to happen. But the question mark becomes, if the Lebanese army is given those orders, do they reject those orders? I believe that in the past, when that's attempted to happen, the head of the Lebanese army has rejected those orders, but they could just possibly replace him with someone else. Do they reject those orders? Does the Lebanese army become part of Hezbollah? Like, what happens if there's some kind of pressure done? Or do you think this is just vague statements which will never even effectuate in reality?
Well, I mean, the reality is there's nobody in the West that can pressure Lebanon into that. The United States doesn't have that leverage. No country does. So we can threaten, and we can try to say, we'll give you some more aid here and there. But the reality is the Lebanese are largely immune to that kind of pressure. And so it'd have to be their own decision. And so far, if anything, they're going to side with Hezbollah, not against it. Because it'd be one thing if Israel is just killing Hezbollah members, but they're killing Christians, they're killing other members of Lebanese society. So they've really further alienated Lebanon.
I completely agree with you. And so, I mean, we'll have to wait and see. You believe that the war is going to be coming soon. I think so too. So we'll have to wait and see what happens with that. Everyone should be following your Substack, Larry, which is Sonar21, as well as your website, which is Sonar21. You already came out with the article today. It was last night because I saw it on my alert, but I didn't have a chance to read it. I'm going to read it after the various interviews I've done. But yeah, you got some great content there, Larry. So everyone should definitely be following you.
Yeah, last night, which of the Gulf Arab countries are most important to the global economy? So when you go down and look at it, you begin to realize that Saudi Arabia and Qatar really are the two most important countries in the Gulf for the global economy. And the cutoff of oil, of LNG, of urea, of sulfur, helium, that is devastating effects for the world economy. We just have yet to fully appreciate how bad it's